Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hi.
We're just waiting for one more, our third BZA member.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. And you guys are the only people on the agenda tonight, so
Okay, Mr. Simpson is our neighbor.
yeah, I've been talking to a couple neighbors, so.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. So, Reed, are you going to kick us off, or do I call us to order first? How do we want to do this?
You would just call to order, and then I'll read the staff report and the list of how the meeting works is in the agenda, but essentially you ask me any questions, then you guys can talk amongst each other if you want. Then you give the applicant an opportunity to speak, ask that the Rapucci's questions if you have them, then open up the public hearing if the neighbors have anything to say, and then you can speak amongst each other and make your decision. I have informed the Rapucci's that because there are only 3 BZA members present, all 3 of you have to vote in favor of the variance in order for it to pass. And he has the right, I believe, to at any time defer until next month if he feels that perhaps having 2 more BZA members present would help his case.
Right.
So we've talked about that, and but certainly he's itching to move forward with his process, and I don't blame him for that. So,
Certainly.
So here we are.
Okay. Well, we have everybody now, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So in the interest of time, I'm going to call this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals on February 17th, 2022 to order. Why don't we start with a welcome and introductions since we meet infrequently.
Sure.
My name is Genevieve Keller, and I was elected vice chair in late 2021. We have not met since that time, and I understand that the chair's term has expired, so I'll be presiding this evening. And we have 2 other members of the panel here, as Reed said. So I think you know Reed because you've been working with him, and I see other city staff here as well who are in support of Reed and our technology. So why don't the other 2 members of the board introduce yourselves?
Sure, I can go first. Hi, my name is Matt Morrill. I joined the BZA last year, so relatively new member.
My name is Sakib Ahmed. I know it says Reed under my Zoom link, so I'll have to change that. But I'm a BZA member. I joined last year as well.
Okay.
My name is Nicholas Rapucci. Nicholas Rapucci. It's misspelled there, which happens all the time. But and this is my wife, Margarita Caldente.
Thank you. So as Reed says, we only have this one case today, and I'm going to ask Reed if he would present the staff report.
Okay. And everyone should have it. I'm just going to go ahead and read. Usually I paraphrase it, but I think it's pretty succinct, so I'll just go ahead and read the whole thing. So this is BZA case 22-2-001. The location is 518 Park Plaza. The applicant is Mr. Nicholas Rapucci. The current use of the property is a single-family home, and it's zoned R1S. And the owner is requesting relief from section 34-1105B5 that has to do with required setbacks for an accessory structure. The first step of the variance process is to determine whether or not he has the right to apply for a variance. And I believe that due to the size or area of the lot and the topography of the lot, that he does have the right to go forward with a variance request. So as mentioned, the subject property is located in the North Downtown neighborhood. It's approximately 100 feet deep, 50 feet wide, and it's fairly steep in the front. It's about a 37% slope. So the house is pushed a little back towards the property, towards the middle of the property, and it butts right up to the 25-foot rear yard setback, which is required. The dwelling's about just under 1,500 square feet, and the Rapucci family has 5 people, and they reside in that dwelling. And the variance is to encroach into the rear yard setback with a new accessory structure that will be 12 feet wide by 20 feet long. This structure will provide additional space because they are limited by setbacks and grade to where they can build additions onto their existing home. And it will have no kitchen, but there will be a bathroom. And it's supposed to be for his children, his 3 children that will utilize it for additional space because their bedrooms are quite small. It should be noted the applicant has already begun construction on this structure that we're seeking a variance for. Myself and Craig Fabio received a complaint about this structure when it was already under roof, which is kind of frustrating for us, but in any event, the applicant has been under a stop work order as we try to go through this process and get a variance for him. So originally there was a shed that existed in the same location that was constructed in 1920 and was considered non-conforming because it was within the 5-foot required setback. Non-conforming single-family residential dwellings and accessory structures are regulated by section 1147C1 of the zoning ordinance that states that expansions to height are permitted only if the dwelling is being increased in height and footprint of the dwelling does not expand further into the setback. So under this code, had the applicant known about it, he would have been able to construct what he is doing today, renovate the existing shed that was there and go up with it, and it would be within his right to do so. However, when the structure was torn down, all nonconformities were lost. And that's why he is seeking a variance. The applicant was working with a contractor, and the contractor was given the information that an accessory structure that is less than 256 square feet would have been permitted without a building permit. However, you have to comply with setbacks, and because it's more than 1 story, he does need a building permit. So there was a couple missteps in the process, but you know, the applicant was going off of good faith. He had a contractor and was very far into the project before he was notified that what he was attempting to do was in fact not permitted. So staff, myself, I recommend that this variance be approved for all the reasons I've already mentioned, because it would have been allowed if he had known about the nonconformity and been able, you know, missteps weren't taken with the contractor. You know, I think that a variance would be favorable. I also provided a map of the block and every single other accessory structure in that entire block is within the 5-foot setback. And so he would simply just be going back to what was originally there through a odd way, but through this variance process, essentially putting back what was there. And I've heard from many neighbors, and I have not heard any negative comment as of date. So I've gone through the hardship test, and certainly you can go through that. I'd suggest as you read through the variance and see if you do think that a variance is applicable in this situation.
Thank you, Reed. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Broadhead?
Just one question. Is the structure that's currently under construction within the same footprint of the previous shed? I know you said the shed was demolished.
Correct. I've never seen the shed that was there. But I was told that it's in the same location. You can tell from using GIS, but I wasn't able to use like Google Street View or anything to actually see the shed, just because it's so tucked back in the backyard because of the topography. So, but it does show up on our GIS layer.
We do have photos of it in reference to it as well, Reed.
Okay.
Which are in the packet, I believe there's a photo.
It's in the applicant's packet, yeah.
Reed, I have a question about the point that you made earlier regarding the applicant's right to have made these renovations if they had I guess, rebuilt or constructed above the shed itself. Could you clarify what that process would have looked like if the applicants had gone ahead and used their right of use to renovate the shed? How would that have been different from what they're doing currently?
Right. So that section of the zoning ordinance in the non-conforming section, I think it was 1147, talks to non-conforming single-family structures and accessory structures on single-family lots. And it essentially gives certain development rights for those structures that are non-conforming because they were either there prior to predated a zoning ordinance or for structures built within the setback. And if the applicant had called me, we would have gone through what their by right uses are for converting that structure from like a shed into what he's trying to do. And there's there's limitations. You can't tear it down, but you can renovate. So he would have been able to renovate what was there, and it would have just been an administrative process. We probably would have done it through email, or if he asked for something on city letterhead, I would have done that, and then he could have just applied for a building permit and gone forward. So it's all all administrative done. This is we're seeing actually lately. There's a lot of structures in Belmont, in the North Downtown neighborhood, and the Martha Jefferson neighborhood, that are built right up to property lines, and people are coming in and converting those into living space. So they're changing them from a garage, or they're going up and putting a second story on them and making it a garage underneath and an apartment up above. The applicant, for instance, could make this a full dwelling unit if he wanted to, and would be within his right. So, but I think it might be a little too small, and it's really just not his intent. But he would have the right to do that as well.
I see. So typically, any non-conforming building, you have that right as long as the call is made prior to the renovation process.
Correct. It probably would have been a little more expensive to renovate because I'm not, it's 100-year-old building, but certainly to save the use of that building, especially with such a small backyard, I think he would have gone that route to accommodate it.
is there any process where outside of the BZA where he would have been able to demolish the structure instead of renovating it, demolish it and build within his right?
No, if he tore it down, then he just has to comply with the setbacks, and I don't think that he even has enough space to accommodate the 5-foot rear yard setback and then the 12-foot wide structure. I'm not 100% sure that there's 17 feet up there, because the wall that they have, their house is built to a patio, and then the patio is 8 to 10 feet wide, and then there's steps that go up to a second terrace level, and that's where the structure is located. It's also already under, it's already done. I mean, it's built, and I think that's one of the points of this is this is kind of an economic hardship as well. He's already spent tens of thousands of dollars on this, which he would have been able to do had he gone through the proper channels on the forefront. And that's why I support it, because he would have had the right to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I support it, overall, whether he demolishes it or not.
Let's hold that until we go into deliberations. Reed, I see that there's several members of the public here. So just for clarity's sake, could you go over the process again? Had the structure not been removed, would the process have been to have had an administrative approval from you and then a building permit, or the building permit would have triggered an administrative review by you?
Either way they want to do it. Most of the time people will call me first before they begin to plan and spend money on an architect and hire a contractor and whatnot. So usually it's that first and then a building permit. Sometimes it's the opposite way, but a building permit never came across my desk for this.
And the addition of a second story would always trigger a building permit.
Correct.
In an existing non-conforming structure. But had they had enough space and built a smaller structure, then they would not have required a building permit for that. Is that right? Correct.
If it was only one story, and if it was less than 256 square feet, they may have just built it and still not known about the setback. I mean, we do have that on our website, but that's a building code situation where frankly, the building code official waived the requirement to have a building permit for smaller structures just because it took up a lot of time and there wasn't enough staff time to review it. So it used to be, I think, like 120 square feet, under didn't need a building permit, and they doubled that because of administrative, time that it took to review permits. So it may have slipped through the cracks, even, if they hadn't built it. I think the issue is that it was 2 stories and a neighbor saw it and then complained. I can't say who it was, but that's how we got to it. Yeah.
The whole process is what happened is understandable, but I just wanted to have as much clarity as we could for the public, because as you said, in the older parts of town, people are interested in using that space, particularly since the pandemic, as they're looking to utilize their space more fully, particularly the outdoor spaces. So are there any other questions from the board for Reed? Thank you. Well, then I'm going to turn to the applicants and ask if you would like to make a brief presentation.
Yes. Hello. Thank you again. And first, please accept our apologies, because we clearly was under the mistaken impression that we could, kind of build on or remodel our shed. It is true that all of this came to kind of, it was really, we were really in need during COVID time. You know, I work from home with 3 kids. Our house is lovely, but we don't have really private spaces. So it was really like kind of like we need to create more space for our family. And also want to say that we have been living in this house. I have been living here since 2004. My husband since 99. So when we were here without kids was perfect, but our family is growing. So, you know, we don't have any other options and we love our neighborhood. So yeah, I don't know if you want to say something else.
Well, I'd like to say a couple things. First of all, thank you for hearing us today, and our sincere apologies for not following the correct protocol. First of all, I'm just embarrassed by it, but also mortified that I kind of put our family in an untenable situation. I would like to stress, and I'm certainly not an architect or a builder, that we are using the same exact footprint. There was a subterranean cement foundation which the builder built off of. So it is true that we took down the walls, which were, to be honest, in disrepair. And I actually think we've been calling it a shed, but when it was first built, I think they called it a garage, and people probably would have put old cars right inside of it because it did have a cement foundation. And in terms of the setbacks, in my view, and looking at and all the measurements, et cetera, the one family that it is most directly affecting is the Siskin family, and that the existing shed was in violation of their 5-foot or 10-foot setback, but it is in no violation of any of our other abutting neighbors. We're not within 5. We're only encroaching on 1 property line, not 2 or 3 or even 4. And the other thing, we certainly spoke to all of our close neighbors about this, and nobody objected. We don't know who brought it to the city's attention, but I don't think it was any of our close neighbors. And I guess I'm talking a little bit much, and I apologize for that. The one nice thing, I think, for our neighbors, the Siskins, and for us, is that we both had windows on the backside or the side of his house and the backside of our house, and we kind of were looking into their houses. It could see right into each other's house, and this creates a visual cliff that increases privacy for both families, which I think is a benefit to them, certainly as well as to us. And again, we have 3 children. We have twins who share a bedroom, and they're getting older, and it's just a crowded space, and we're hopeful that you can see to give us the variance. And a final thing I'd like to say, since it's a public forum, once the city staff got involved, they were very professional with us, and very nice open lines of communication. So it really makes it doubly upsetting that we made these mistakes on the front end, because they were very easy to work with and very professional. And I think it's appropriate to acknowledge that in a public setting, and we thank them for that. Thank you.
And thank you for coming today and for your brief explanation. Reed, is this the point at which we would ask the public if they'd like to make comment?
Correct. I think if you're comfortable, you can open the public hearing. I don't want to jump in line, but I did correspond with the next door neighbor who has a vacant lot, and his only concern was whether or not it impacted his development rights for his vacant lot, which it doesn't. So I mean, he sounded like a great project. So that was the one comment. For that neighbor, his name was Dan Smith.
Okay, thank you. Then I will open the public hearing for any of the attendees who would like to speak to this matter.
Hi, I'm Rob Sinkin, my wife Miriam Halpern. We're the next door neighbors. Nick and Rita have been fantastic neighbors, and they spoke with us before the project started, and we were very much in favor and in agreement of their approach to building an extension for their family. And so we have no objections and support the variance.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
We have one person in, well, two people have raised their hands in the comments. The first is Claudine.
I can't see myself on this, but can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm sitting in my office right now, my home office, and I look right at the project, and it doesn't bother us in the least. So my husband, Nick, and I renovated a house next door to the Rapucci's. Our kids play together. They run back and forth between the two houses. They were in desperate need of space. If you look around, when people are building these houses nowadays and they're adding so much square footage, the Rapucci's they have nothing left. They needed the extra room, and it's not an excessive project in any way, shape, or form because they needed the room. And we aren't bothered by it at all. It matches the house. We knew about it, and we're in full support of the project because it really is not a luxury for them, but completely a necessity. And I know my husband, I think, spoke with you, Reed, about it, and we are in support of the project.
Thank you.
Next we have Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Bolton. I live around the corner on Parkway Street from Nick and Margarita. And Steve and I just want to express our total support of the project. They are fabulous neighbors, conscientious city residents, and our families have been close for years. Our daughters are very close friends. So I know that they've been talking about, wanting this extra space. So the Gabriella, the oldest daughter, and the twins will have, and their friends will have places to hang out. So selfishly speaking, I'm sure my daughter will benefit from it if it moves forward. But we just wholeheartedly encourage the project to happen, and just also want to add that from where it is right now, it's absolutely attractive and looks great from the streetscape perspective. So definitely support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Mary. Mary, you'll probably have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Okay, good. Well, I just add my voice to what Claudine said. I think the structure is attractive. I probably, along with the Sinkins, the neighbor who can see it most obviously when I walk out into my backyard. It's attractive. It's nicely done. It fits in with the rest of the architecture of the house. I like the fact that this neighborhood still can allow families with small children to live here. And I think this is a kind of adjustment that has to be made if the North Downtown neighborhood in this block particularly is going to be able to have the kind of diversity that makes the neighborhood lively and a happy place to be. And I don't have any children in my house, and so I like the fact that other neighbors can accommodate having their children grow up in my neighborhood. It makes it a better place. So I knew about this project as it was developing. I thought it sounded great. I had no idea that it would ever lead to this kind of conflict, or that you have these problems with it. And I hope we'll be able to resolve it. I'll be happy to see the construction completed, and I certainly support the Rapucci's request completely.
Thank you.
Next we have Barbara. Barbara, you have to unmute.
This is actually Barbara's husband, Richard Price. Barbara stepped out, but just to reiterate several of the things that have been said, it's the shed is clearly visible from our front house. It's completely consistent, I think, with the character of the neighborhood. I think I am an architect. I had a quick look at their their property when this all came up, and it clearly they had limited options for expanding or adding onto their house, and makes perfect sense to me that this would be the solution that would make the most sense for them.
Thank you.
Next, we have Steve.
Hello, this is Steve Bolton. I'm the husband of Stephanie, who spoke just a minute ago. We're at 332 Parkway Street, so just up the hill from the Rapucci's. Again, we are in full support of the Rapucci's request. As neighbors and conscientious city residents, I think it was just an inadvertent oversight that this did not go through the proper process. But they are utilizing, or they plan to utilize, the additional space as additional living area for their family, and not impinge upon in anyone else in a bad way in the neighborhood. So we fully support the request, and we're glad that and hope that they can move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last hand I see raised is from Michael.
Hi, my name is Michael Kleppinger. I don't live in North Downtown, but I'm a former land use planner, and I've done some building and developing. I am totally in support of this. I think Mary's comments are most poignant for me when she said that families can live in this neighborhood still, right downtown. That's a wonderful thing. And I know Nick and Rita walk to work or bike to work when they can go to work, which is an important thing to save energy and so forth. We need to densify and keep our people close to town. The downtown mall needs people like this to keep their families in place, and growing and living there is important for all of Charlottesville. So I hope you'll approve this and give these folks a little room to grow. Thanks.
Thank you. Does that complete the members of the public who would like to speak to this item tonight?
I believe so. I don't see any more hands raised.
Thank you very much. Then, and we will close the public hearing, and we will turn to deliberations of the board. This is the time when we can discuss this, and we should address the actionable items that were laid out in the staff report. Would anyone like to begin?
Sure. I think, thanks to Reed for putting together this really comprehensive report. It really outlined everything. And I think I agree with staff's request to approve the variance. We have a lack of affordable housing in the city. People want to build and expand upon their property. They should have the right to do that. It seems pretty obvious that the Rapucci's had that right. They just had one misstep, and it's our position to help, make that right. I'm 100% behind helping them and making that right. Again, they had the right to do it regardless, so we should grant them that.
Yeah, I to continue on that, I agree. I think the fact that it is a structure that follows the same footprint as the previous structure, and like even the same foundation, and also that there seems to be significant support among neighbors for the proposal definitely matters. And yeah, like Sakiba was saying, this is really a process question rather than a right of use question. So I don't see any major reason not to move forward.
In reviewing this, I'm going to remind everyone that we are a quasi-judicial body, and so we really are not charged with looking at affordability or livability, and generally a hardship is defined by the constraints, the physical constraints of the site, and not the economics or size of a family. And I'm not saying that because I have an objection to the process or to this project. I'm just saying to remind us of what our charge from the court and from the city is sitting on this board, because we have other options available to us in zoning text amendments and the zoning rewrite that's happening now that will address livability and affordability and density and those sorts of issues. So we really kind of need to go with the ordinance that we have now. That said, I think that Reed in the report is laid out that if the shed had not been demolished, and that was really an error, a misunderstanding on the part of the contractor, this could have been a by right use. The fact the foundation of the building still, the original building still exists, or the subsequent building on that site, that still exists. That says to me that this is an actionable item for a variance for us, and I would be fully supportive of them being able to expand it to the second story, since that right extends to all of their neighbors that still have one-story existing garages or sheds in their backyard. Is there any further comment or question for either staff or the applicant? Then I'll ask if anyone has a motion.
There is a canned motion. It's kind of long on the staff report if you want to use that one. Right. Otherwise, you can offer your own motion. Do
you see those?
It's at the bottom. You can also just, if you don't want to read the whole thing, you can just say that you accept the motion that staff has presented.
There are two in the staff report, and one is just a simple approval, and the other would allow for any conditions if anyone wanted to attach any conditions. But we didn't discuss those, but you would be able to do so if you wished.
Sorry, I closed the window with the staff report, so I'm trying to bring it back up. So can I just go motion to approve the variance as laid out?
And is there a second?
I second.
Is there any further discussion? No, Mr. Broadhead, could you call the question?
Correct. Ms. Keller.
Aye.
Do you, Mr. Ahmed?
Aye.
Mr. Morel?
Aye.
Okay, so the variance passes 3-0. Congratulations to the Rapucci's.
Thank you very much.
I will be in touch shortly, but we'll see if we can get this building permit issued tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
And we wish you all the success in finishing your construction, and hope that your family enjoys a little more space.
Thank you. We really need it. Thank you.
Great.
Likewise. Best of luck.
Thank you.
So we don't really have anything else.
I don't have the agenda up in front of me anymore. I don't know if you have anything else you wanted us to consider tonight.
There's nothing on the agenda. Typically we review minutes, but I feel like that is kind of gone the way of the dodo now that we record everything, record all our meetings. I'm not quite sure whether or not we actually have to approve that or not, but it would probably be better for the people that were actually involved in the meeting to have a say in that process. It is, I know it's a little difficult because we don't meet very often. And we might need at some point, if we don't meet every 3 months, to just have a formal meeting where we can just do a bunch of, you know, administrative stuff very quickly. And it would be like a 15-minute public meeting, you know, re-elect who chairs are, co-chairs, and that kind of thing. There is going to be one more person added on. One person applied. Also, Matt wants to be a permanent member, so he's also applied for that, and it's up to the judge to decide who he wants, which I have nothing to do with. It's all up to the judge. And that's about it. You know, I mentioned the training opportunities, and it's limiting, and I still have to get approval from my boss of whether or not he's willing to spend $500 a person for the training, but I'll keep bending that ear. And that's all I have.
Reed, I just have a quick question on membership. Do we no longer have alternates either, or have we? No,
we do. We do. We have, so there's 2 alternates. Matt is one, and Cecilia Mills is the other alternate, but she has a work meeting right now, so she can't do it. And then our other 2 regular members are also not available. Mr. Mitchell is traveling for work, and Mr. Becker is in the military reserves and is deployed right now. So for this month, this 1 month that we actually have a meeting. But yeah, I mean, I was surprised that we were only able to have 3 of 6 people available to meet, but I'm glad that it worked out for this case. Yeah, so people roll off every year. I believe Ms. Keller's term might be up this year. So certainly you have the right to decide whether or not you want to try to rejoin the board, Jenny. But that's a bridge we can cross in 10 months.
Right. It seemed like I was just appointed because I was a planning commission representative. Then I went to being an alternate, and then when there was a vacancy, I moved back on. So I don't know how they counted. If they counted from when I was an alternate, or if they counted from when I became a board member. But we can sort that out over the next few months.
So I also was talking to my wife because it was a little chaotic this afternoon with the 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock is what the time that we've always met for the BZA. I don't necessarily think it's set in stone. So we can also talk about potentially moving the time of this meeting if it's inconvenient and if we feel that it would better serve the public and the members that are part of the board. So especially if everyone works, so sometimes it's difficult to meet at 4 o'clock. So that might be a topic of discussion as well.
Yeah, it probably would be more accessible to the applicants and to panelists. I mean, to board members as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. I think that the time was set at 4 o'clock because that was the time that we could get the basement conference room. And now that everything's virtual, eventually we're going to go back in person, but I also would want to pick a different room. I don't think the basement conference room is the best room. And there's other alternatives that would suit the board better.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to return to the issue of training since I'll take responsibility for being the person that suggested we have it. Since we now have, I think Jose and I are the only current members who've ever served on the Planning Commission or any other body that has, sort of broad experience in the zoning ordinance and in procedures. So I think it would be helpful because it would get us all on the same page. I really appreciated what you sent from Mike Chandler. It called out some things to me that I hadn't thought about before, because I've never had that training. I had planning commissioner training, but not zoning board training. So I think even if we didn't have it taught by an outsider, even if we were to go over that together once we have a full board, I think it would be really, really helpful for
like a work session or something of that.
Yeah, even just going through the agenda, what's in our purview, what's not, and how the BZA might differ from the Planning Commission and the council, and is there an appeal to this? Where does it go? All those kinds of things would be very helpful, I think, for all of us that sit on the board.
I think that's a great idea.
Constraints of budget and travel right now, but I do think we need something, even if it's no more than an hour on Zoom all together to go through those materials.
Sure.
So thank you for providing that. I found it helpful.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
So if you want to make a motion to adjourn, if you have nothing else to say, then we can end this meeting.
Yeah, everybody ready to adjourn?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Then this meeting is adjourned until the next call meeting of the BZA.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much for
everybody.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks,
you guys.
Nice
Bye.
to see you all.
You
Bye.
too. Take care.